I don't care. I don't mind looking stupid. Like, holy crap. I got Sports Center clip of the week one time for doing the worm in the flat bottom when I crashed. So I don't mind looking stupid.
Here we go. We are live. Another episode of Open Action with John McClain, presented by Armscor. And this episode, super excited to have my good buddy Morgan Wade on. So Morgan is a pro BMX rider. We're gonna have to talk about how we met each other, because it's one of the most random places that I think we could have met, and the way we did. But one of the highlights of your career was that you were the 2013 X Games Big Air gold medalist, and you also won a gold medal in like some was it the doubles in like 2015 or 16, right? So you got some X Game medals underneath your belt. You've just got, you've got a pretty fun career, that you have, and then now you get to go on these tours and stuff like that. So thank you so much for being on the show, man. I appreciate you taking time to sit down and chat.
It's a blast to get to do stuff like this, sit down and chat and potentially reach a demographic that I don't get to reach very often. So it's cool. I really love the industry, and it's fun to be a part of it any way I can.
And you've got some pretty close connections with some of the people that myself and even Kelly are aware of. With CMC was the connection that Kelly had with you, and then Vortex is the one that obviously we have. And it was funny because so the way I got to meet Morgan was that he came through my little town of Chillicothe, Missouri, that I live in now, with his with a tour that he was doing of it's like a Christian extreme sports like based thing, right?
Sure, yeah.
And you were doing shows for the high schoolers there, and then you did like a show at the end of the school day for anyone that wanted to show up, and you guys gave some testimony, and then after that, you guys you had a full on setup in the gymnasium and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember
we got to go to different schools around the city there, like throughout the week, and surrounding the surrounding area, and kind of just put on a show, give off the school shows are more of like just give off a positive message, and then get them to come to the big main event show that we were able to set up more ramps and have a good time, and it was very upfront. It's not a bait and switch by any means to get us to hear us talk about God or anything like that, but it's definitely like everyone knew what it was going into it. But it was cool to get to have some of the guys give their testimony and whatnot, and just let everyone know what Jesus has done for us, and we want to spread that and share that with other people. So it's an awesome way to use our talent riding bikes, that God gave us the talent to do that, so we can do it and show off and get people's attention, and everyone can have a good time, and then get to meet and make new cool friends like yourself. So it was awesome getting to see you out there. It was weird.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Like, I see that Vortex sticker on your helmet. What's going on there? Because I have a big Vortex sticker right here in front of my helmet. But
yep.
That was the connection.
Oh, well, that was it. That was what attracted me to it. I was like, so explain, because like normally, like I understand like the idea of like pro athletes, and when they put logos on somewhere for other people to see them wearing, there's normally some reason behind it, whether or not it's a paid thing, or even if it's just like I love this company, I know the people, they're awesome, I want to support them.
Right.
But yeah, seeing that logo was like, hey, so what's up with the Vortex logo? And then you told me that Ruben,
the big Noveski on this side over here. Oh yeah, I'm actually somewhat of an oddity in the BMX world, being my sponsors. Half of my sponsors are gun company sponsors. So it's like, like I got Noveski, Vortex, CMC. I'm on Team Multicam, which is Cry Precision, obviously. And then dead air suppressors, like silencers and stuff. So I get to do a lot of fun stuff. And I've worked with Silencer Co. in the past, and a few other deals. I've met a lot of fun people along the way. And we can get into how my introduction to the gun world happened too, if you want to, down the line. But I'm a little bit of a strange dude when it comes to like my sponsors, because typically extreme sports athletes aren't sponsored by, gun companies. And that world is fairly, left leaning. So it's not necessarily frowned upon, or maybe it is frowned upon. I don't know. A lot of people don't hold the same views as we do. So it's interesting getting to kind of, be able to put something out there that not everyone is used to seeing.
Yeah, no, it wasn't, and absolutely, it was cool to see that kind of relationship from someone that was in the extreme sports and then also being so into firearms openly. Like it's one thing to just kind of be like, yeah, I own a gun, but I don't really talk about it. And like, it's kind of one of those things like, well, if you're not openly supporting it, then you're kind of actually kind of hurting the situation, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
like the worst thing that a good person can do is to do nothing in a time where it's needed, because
Right.
you basically just let evil take over, right? So the fact that to see someone openly being like, no, hell yeah, I rock, I love firearms, I like shooting, I think our Second Amendment's important, like it's a cool different dynamic, and I think it's also something that a lot of firearms owners can get behind. It's I don't know, it's not to make it as like like it's a choice that you're trying to capitalize on from the financial standpoint or a fan base standpoint, but it
Right.
almost says, like, to me, it says that when you're willing to make a stand about something that's as much of a hot topic as
It is a hot
firearms is
topic right
right
now.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for someone to actually just come out and be like, yeah, I support firearms. I love firearms. I love our Second Amendment. I shoot guns all the time. Like, that says so much more about your character, because all you're saying is, you're not saying that, well, if you don't like firearms, you're wrong and you're an idiot. All you're saying is that I support it,
Yeah.
and if you want to have that discussion, I'm more than happy to have that discussion. It's like, it just says so much more for me, from a person that's willing to step up and just be like,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
this is
Yeah.
who I am and this is what I like. If you don't like it, you don't have to like it,
Yeah.
but at least respect that I do, kind of thing. So
Yeah, and that goes hand in hand with my faith in Jesus Christ as well. Like that's something that I proudly wear on my sleeve as far as like what I believe in. But I'm not, like necessarily ramming it down people's throats. But if you want to talk about it, hey, I'd love to talk about it. I like talking about the
hmm
good things in my life, and I want other people to have good things too. So it's the same type of thing, exactly what you're saying with like the firearms industry, and obviously there's a lot of negativity around that right now that is very biased and undeserved from the community. So, like obviously, firearms are demonized in our current atmosphere of the country because certain people in power don't want their subjects to fight back, do they? So it's kind of like, but they hide that under the guise of, but it's for the children, it's safer for the children, and whether or not they're behind some of these horrible things that are happening to help them try to prove their point or not, it doesn't really matter. They're still feeding the public a lie, and
hmm
that lie is that firearms are inherently evil when an inanimate object is not evil. It's the person that uses the object that is evil. And we should be really looking at the users that are doing the horrible things rather than the tools they're using to do it. So
Well, so yeah, I mean, I've discussed this before, where it's the idea, like, when I was an EMT in Vegas, I did that for 8 years.
mhm.
I ran probably 50 to 100 drunk driving car accidents to one gunshot
Mhm.
call ever. So, but like, no one's trying to take away my car keys. No one's trying
Right,
to limit vehicles from going over 100 miles an hour.
right.
But it was just like, and the hypocrisy that comes on too from this standpoint is just always what flabbergasts me. For all of these people, whether or not they're celebrities or whatever, like, they all say that guns are bad and we should give them up, as they are protected by an army of armed security personnel. And it's like, so you know what's valuable to you, which is why you have people around you that can protect you, and yet you're not able to, or you're not willing to admit that, hey, maybe one of the things
Exactly.
it's, the other thing too is like that definition of insanity, right? Is do the same thing over and over and expect different results.
Different. Yeah. I actually just used that. My nephew was yelling at his dog and the dog wasn't listening and he kept saying his name, Rocco, over and over again. I was like, hey, do you know the definition of insanity? And he was like, what? I was like, just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I was like, the dog clearly isn't coming, man. So let's just pipe it down a little bit.
Yeah, exactly,
And
right. But
he got, he's like, oh gosh, yeah, but same exact thing. And, but the war on drugs, obviously, that was solved by making all drugs illegal, right? So there's no more drug problems because we made them all illegal. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, having certain drugs be illegal, but I am saying that the approach, I think, was the problem. The approach was wrong. Making something illegal doesn't stop people from breaking the law if they're going to break the law anyway. But we could fight obesity by making spoons illegal, but it's kind of the same logic. It doesn't really add up, but people don't really want to take the time. I think it's in intellectual laziness is what it amounts to. They don't want to take the time to figure out and actually think about the situation from a point of view of rationality. So,
That and yeah, I think in general, I don't even think it's just mental lazy. I think it's laziness in general, right? Like
mhm.
if let's be honest, we are creatures that seek comfort and an easier life. I mean, there's a reason why we all live in houses now, and that's because we found out that caves sucked. But there's a reason we started living in caves. It's because we realized that being out in the open sucked, right? So like we're always trying to find ways to better ourselves, make it easier for ourselves, and so when you get into these positions of like, oh, I mean, I could go out and work 40 hours a week, or I could do something stupid and then try and collect disability and unemployment and just kind of chill at home all day and do it. You know, it's like, well, of course, like who wouldn't be like, yeah, hell yeah, I want to get paid to just sit around and do nothing. But, you know, and that's kind of something that I feel is lacking, which sucks, is that work ethic is no longer there anymore. Like I'm not the kind of person, like if I lost my job tomorrow, like I wouldn't just be sitting back and being like, well, time to collect that unemployment and just kind of hang out. Like I'd be like, no, let's make something happen. Whether or not I'm going to try and find a job somewhere or try and create something or whatever, you know. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's an interesting time we're living in. But luckily, we still have badass people like you that go out there and do these crazy things for awesome purposes. And let's talk about how the hell do you get into riding BMXs and doing what you've done in your career? Um, because like I can tell you, here's my experience with extreme sports. Right, I thought I wanted to be a skateboarder for so long when I was like eighth grade, ninth grade, you know, just getting in high school and stuff. And and the exact moment when I realized I no longer wanted to be a skateboarder was the first time I tried to do a board slide. The board came out from underneath me and I landed on my spine on the back of that pipe. I laid there on the ground thinking, nope,
This
I no longer want to be a skateboarder. This hurts and I don't want to do this anymore, right? So
because that goes back to the definition of insanity, right? Let me try that
yeah,
again.
but so explain to us. I mean, how did you come up with the one for the obviously like I enjoyed riding a bike, but how did you come up with the love of BMX, and then how do you get from just like, okay, I've learned how to ride a bike now, to hey, I bet I could jump over that car, stuff like that.
Right, right. Well, it's a slow process. I mean, it's like time on tools. You got time on tools, and then it's just practice, 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 which also is time on tools. Same thing. The more you ride, the more comfortable you get on it, and you use baby steps. You work your way up from the bottom up. And I mean, I learned how to ride a bike when I was probably 5 years old, and we always had ramps and little a log and a board on it in the yard. And we're launching off it, or get the sawhorses out of the shed and put some board and try to ride and balance and whatnot. And when I was about 14 is when I got my first legit freestyle bike that was like for tricks. And I actually started riding the flat ground stuff on the road in front of my house. So we didn't have like a paved driveway. We just had like rocks. So I would go out on the actual road, which is just like, farm to market road. And I could see, nice far distance both directions. So when there's no cars coming, I would just go out there and try to learn tricks and stuff. And I did that for probably about a year. And the closest skate park was in Dallas. We live in Tyler, Texas. It was in Dallas, about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And we would make like once a month. We would go up there to Dallas and ride the skate park, and that just kind of like solidified my love for ramp riding. Which we had. I built a ramp with my brother in our yard too back then, around the same time. So we had one little ramp in the yard that we would play on. That was an actual quarter pipe, and it was built terribly, but it worked. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just like, hey, let's try this. We did what we thought, how we thought we would build it, and it worked. But looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like why would we ever? We got the boards to bend. We use 3/4 plywood, which is super hard to bend. First of all, we always like when we build ramps now, you do multiple layers of like half inch because it bends a little easier and you can get a nice smooth radius out of it. But we use 3/4, so it's super stiff, and we soaked it in the pond for 24 hours, and then the water made it bend, and oh gosh, but it's a learning curve too. Obviously everything's a learning curve, but the first
Well,
time
and you didn't have the internet back then either, so you couldn't just go on YouTube and say, how do I make a quarter pipe or whatever. Like,
now
I mean that's
we had seen several BMX stunt shows, before that that came through town, and the very first time I ever saw it was actually Matt Hoffman had a stunt team called the Sprocket Jockeys, and they went to the Texas State Fair and did the whole fair. It's like the largest fair in the world, basically, and it runs for 24 days straight, I believe. And they were out there doing demos back in the early 90s, and we saw it, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And that was what really piqued my interest. Fast forward a few years when I got my first bike and we tried to build a ramp and stuff. We did it, but and it just kind of, it's downhill from there, man. I spent a lot of time on that thing. I would ride for sometimes like 10 hours a day, like 4, 5, 6 days a week. Once we finally actually got a legit skate park in town in 1998, I started riding in 97. That's when I got my first, freestyle bike like I was talking about. Then we got a skate park a year later, and that's where I really shifted from the flat ground tricks and dabbling with ramps to actually just pretty much mainly riding ramps. Noble E. Young Park, which unfortunately is not there anymore, but that place, man, I spent some time out in that field, in that skate park, and just started getting good. And you just keep doing it, and then I started realizing that I was better than most of the other guys because for whatever reason it clicked for me. It's not. I think there's definitely something to the amount of effort you put in. You can become good at anything with enough practice, but there's also natural talent is definitely a part of it. And I had some natural talent for it, but I also put in a lot of time and work into getting good at it. And I started going to local events, little like BMX, like amateur BMX contests, and every single amateur contest I ever entered, I won. And then fast forward a few years, I actually entered a pro contest and didn't do bad. I was like, well, probably going to do terrible, but I was like fourth place, one spot off podium. And that was against guys that there were guys riding in that contest that I had their posters on my wall. So, guys that are really like superstars to me in the BMX world. And that was where I figured out I could really hang with these guys. And I was like, oh, okay. And then just kind of went from there. A couple of years later, I was able to get an invite to X Games, and I've been riding X Games from 2003 was my first X Games, and I've ridden all of them but one, which was, I believe, 2010 or 2011, one of the other. But it was because I ruptured my spleen and I physically couldn't ride, so I was healing. But
okay, so explain to people. Explain to people that aren't into the extreme sports and stuff, like how would you characterize, or what would you parallel the X Games to compared to another regular sport that most people know of? Like what kind of, when you're talking about the level?
For example, the X Games would be the Super Bowl. It's that's the big one. It's the contest. It's the pinnacle. Currently, we have the Olympics. BMX, freestyle BMX is in the Olympics now. So that one is kind of, I think that one's kind of taken the lead as far as what the pinnacle event in the sport would be. But again, that's only once every 4 years, and they have all the contests leading up to it that are nowhere near as big as the X Games would be. But the X Games definitely still holds clout as far as what it is and how it's respected amongst the sport. Now you've got, of course, you got the hardcore guys that are like, oh, the X Games dudes, what are their sellouts? It's not hardcore, whatever. Whatever. There's lots of guys that are core that ride the X Games as well, and it's a great vehicle to expose people that aren't familiar with the sport to the sport, and that also invites sponsorships into the sport, which in turn makes it so that guys can ride and not have to have a regular job, and it can be a career. So why would you ever turn that down if you're in your right mind? Most of the guys that are griping about it and complaining about it are the dudes that still have to work at Chipotle and the bike shop in their spare time. So I'm not hating on that either. Right. I love the hustle. Those guys, there's so many dudes that they're so rad, and I wish more guys could exclusively ride for a living than do. But I'm one of the fortunate few that's my job. It's my main job to do that. And I do a lot of shows now, like exhibitions and stuff, more so than competitions. I am and have been for the last handful of years the oldest athlete competing in the X Games. my dad pointed that out to me in I think 2017. He's like, "Hey, you're the oldest guy out here," because I think it was around the time that Bob Burnquist retired from competing, uh, and I was just like, "Oh man!" like, really? But obviously my dad brought it up. He's like, "That's really cool," and I was just like, "I'm old. Oh no!" But I can still hang. I can still hang with the youngins. So
Yeah, well, and someone's got to put those youngins in their place every now and then. Be like, hey boys, watch this. Let me show you how it's really done.
That's right. But I used to always ride like the park event, the freestyle BMX park events at X Games, and I have a silver medal from way back when, 17 years ago, whatever, 2006, I believe it was. And then I got into Mega Ramp, the big air ramp, which is just a spectacle, basically. I mean, it's an 80-foot roll in for anyone that's not familiar. So you start off 80 feet off the ground, you roll into this steep roll in, and then you have a 65 to 70-foot gap. There's a jump, and then that goes into a 30-foot tall quarter pipe, which is just, if you think of a pipe, cut it into quarters, that's a quarter pipe, right? So, and that's just see how high you can go. And we're going like 60 miles an hour down this thing. So it's hang on and white knuckle it if you really want to have fun. Some guys are a little more timid to go high, so they put their effort into like doing crazy gnarly tricks, but not quite as high. So they'll still get a really good score because the trick difficulty was like through the roof. But then you got guys that more focus on like how high can I go? Might not be as crazy of a trick, but I'm 10 feet higher, and that holds just as much weight as a harder trick. So, and I fit into the latter category. I like to go high and try to do big tricks. So it's a good combo if you can make it work. And I got a couple of a little bit of hardware to show for it. But like I always say, like when people bring that up, I'm always like, yeah, I get lucky every now and then. So,
well, okay. So then that was going to be my next question, was because like, what was it like the first time you went down that big ramp? Like, because like the first time I ever went snowboarding, right? And like you kind of learn how to do the falling leaf, right? You just kind of and the first time I was like, you know what? Let me just bomb it down this mountain and see what it's like. I'm not going to lie. Like there is a point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going too fast. And I just like, okay, I got to give in. I got to slow down, right?
I've made
but when you're on a ramp like that, like, yeah, when you're on a ramp like that, I got to assume there is no, like, once you start, there's no like, oh, I got to slow. Yeah, you're in for it, right?
So ride at that point, once you go, there's no turning back. It really, so 2006 was the very first Mega Ramp event. And I've been fortunate enough, I've ridden in all of them except for the year that I hurt my spleen, which we can get to that later if you want to talk about that. That's fine too. But I've ridden all of the BMX big air events. And the first year they had the ramp there, I believe was 03. And they just did like a demo on it. The skaters did a demo. The skateboard guys did a demo on it. And then the next year, I believe they had an actual skate contest. And there was one bike rider, this guy by the name of Mike Escamilla. His nickname's Rooftop. He's a stuntman. He's been in like all like the big Marvel movies and stuff. He does like stunts for a lot of those. I think in the this is a little bit off topic, but the Guardians of the Galaxy, Rocket the Raccoon walks across his face. He's one of the Ravengers. He's one of the dead Ravengers.
Oh,
but
okay.
A little side note there. Anyway, the stuntman of BMX, Mike Escamilla, Rooftop, he rode the ramp, and of course it was a spectacle because it's like, oh yeah, the stuntman. Of course he's going to ride that ramp. Like that's ridiculous, and kind of like I think proved to ESPN that bikes can ride this. And I don't know why they would have thought we couldn't, because bikes literally ride all the same stuff skateboards skate on. So they really go hand in hand. There's not really, as far as the facilities we use, there's not really a difference for bikes and skateboards. It's just a matter of the equipment you're using on it. And a couple, 2 years later, 2006, they decided to actually put together a BMX big air event. And they had 3 guys that were down to ride the thing. Just 3 guys. And it was Kevin Robinson, Alan Cook, and Chad Keggy. Those 3 names. I don't expect you to know who they are, but they were like, those dudes are big names in the sport of BMX. They're like the pro dudes, and they're fearless, absolutely fearless. All of them have that stuntman gene thing going on too. So they just go fast into the moon, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. Of course they're riding this ramp." But they only had 3 guys, so it was like they were like, "Well, we need a bigger field if we're gonna have a contest." So they basically opened it up. They had open practice on the ramp for BMX. If you were invited to the X Games in any discipline for BMX, you were invited to come and try the ramp out and see if you wanted to compete in it. And it was one of those things where like they said, "Hey, ride it. It's open all week. If you like it, you're in." That was how you got into that event. And out of everyone that went down there and rode, a lot of dudes were like, "Oh, new event. I'm on it. This is gonna be sick. I'm gonna do this. They had all these guys were talking like mad, mad talk about what they were gonna be doing on this ramp. And then like you say, the first time like they went and rode it or looked down it, half of them didn't even drop in when they got up there and actually looked down at it. They're like, "Ooh, no." And then the other half rode it a little bit and were just like, "This isn't for me." And I didn't even want to ride the thing. I was like, "Yeah, I don't even need to go up to the top. I know I don't want to ride that." And at the time, I was riding for Etnies Shoes, and the BMX team manager for Etnies, a fellow by the name of John Pova, he was like, "Hey, you should try that out. Like, it's open practice. Go try it. I think it's right up your alley." Like, and he had told me before. He knew about it before I did. So he was like, when I was headed out there, he goes, "Hey, bring your full face," because you had to have a full face helmet to ride the ramp. So bring your full face to the X Games. I was like, "Oh, okay." I mean, I have one, but I hardly ever use it. I mean, and so I brought my full face, and he's like, you should ride this thing." And I had an idea about it. He had mentioned it, but and I was like, "Nah, I'm just not. I don't think this is for me, man." He was like, "Just do me a favor, go up there, drop in one time. If you drop in one time and you don't like it, I won't ever bother you about it again. But I think this is really up your alley. I think you'll," because at that point in time, I was kind of known as the dude that would go pedal as fast as I could at something and just see how far I could go. I was the gap guy. Like I would ride the park course, which park course has lots of different ramps, like you'd see at a skate park, set up in whatever fashion, and you can ride it the quarter box jump, spine, quarter whatever, or you can try to go, "Hey, jump from this ramp to that ramp over there." And that was more my style. It was like, I want to see if I can go fast enough to go from that place all the way over there and make that distance. And that was kind of what made my riding stand out a lot when I would ride those events. And so he was like, "I think it's up your alley because you're like balls to the walls type rider." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." I went up there and I looked down that thing and I was just like, no. And I went back down the elevator and I was like, "I'm good." And he was like, No, drop in. I'm not, he got on me, pestered me until I dropped in. I was like, "Okay." And literally the only reason I dropped in is like, so he'd leave me alone. I was
Just
like,
to shut him up. Yeah.
I'm just show him that this isn't for me. I'll drop in, I'll jump it, I'll turn around the corner and I'm done. And I dropped in and it's just like, you're just hanging on and just, I mean, it's like faster than it's faster than is normal. Like, so it felt very abnormal, but my goodness, was that fun. And then when I jumped, there's no way you're not going to clear the jump as long as you don't touch your brakes. So I cleared the jump and then I went into this quarter pipe and I was dragging brakes on that too. Cause I didn't want to go super I didn't know where I was going to go. And I took off this thing. I think I went, the first time I ever hit it, I think I went about 13 feet over the coping of the 27 and a half foot quarter pipe. So yeah, 27 and a half foot. Coping is the bar at the top of the ramp that you put your pegs on or whatever, grind on. And then I went 13 feet above that, which on normal ramps, which would be, like mini ramps or like a 7-8 foot quarter pipe, 13 feet is ridiculous air. Like that's ridiculous. If you can go 13 feet out of a 7 or 8 foot quarter, like that's something special. Like it's not many people have aired that high out of normal size quarter pipes. And here I am. This is the first time I've ever touched this thing. And it was no effort at all. And I went that high, even dragging brakes, trying to slow down. I went that high and I was instantly hooked. I was just like, this is for me. And I was like, this is so fun. And I was like, got to the bottom, grabbed my bike, went straight to the top and did it again. And I was on repeat. It was boo, boo, boo. And there was like not very many other dudes were actually riding it other than the 3 guys that I mentioned that were actually in already because they had ridden similar ramps, whether it be there was like a place called Point X. It was like a ramp camp in Southern California, and then there's like the Boom Boom Huck Jam, Tony Hawk's tour that they did. They had a big ramp like that. That's where the other guys all rode those big ramps, and I'd never touched them, but man, it was so much fun. And they had to literally they closed practice, and they were like, "Hey, you got to get out." And I was like, "No, I got another run." I went and took another couple runs, like sneaking as much as I could. They had to pry me off of the thing, so it was kind of like literally downhill from there. And sure enough, I was the only other rider that agreed to ride the contest. So there were 4 riders. I was literally the only one that got in through the practice day. Nobody else did. There's one guy, a really good buddy of mine named Koji Kraft, who rode practice, and he really wanted to be in, but they didn't let him because he's crazy, and he knows he is. So I feel comfortable saying that here. Koji, I absolutely love Koji, but I think the ESPN was afraid that he would get too rowdy on it, and he would have killed it. He would have absolutely killed it if they let him ride. But yeah, for whatever reason, he didn't get a spot. But yeah, 4 of us. That was it, and I got 4th place in the contest. So, and I didn't care. I didn't care one bit because I literally I'm just like, it's like flying. Like, where else can you fly with no effort on a bicycle? Like, it was great. And sure enough, over the years, I fairly quickly, a few years into it, became the guy that was actually airing higher than everybody else. So I actually currently hold the highest air record in competition on the mega ramp across all sports. So higher than skateboards, higher than anything that's ridden that ramp. So
yeah, take that, you young folks.
Like I said, I get lucky every now and then. But the official height I think is 2311 is what the X Games puts it at. But I'm not sure how they measure height and stuff. The one that they said was that high, I didn't think was that high when I watched the video. I was like, oh, okay. And then they said it was that high. I was like, I'm going to argue with it because it kind of makes me look good. So why would I be like, no, I'm not that good? But
right.
I'll take it. But my standards, it didn't seem as high. But in practice, I have gone about 25. So, and that technically 25 foot is, I believe, the second highest air ever done in the world in BMX. So under Matt Hoffman.
Man, yeah,
right under Matt Hoffman. So there's some controversy with another rider, but we don't need to get into that. So, but Matt Hoffman is definitely the pioneer of big air riding, and that's actually Danny Way attributes his riding the big quarter pipe to where he got the idea for the mega ramp when he built the first mega ramp.
Okay.
And that's my boss. I ride for Hoffman Bikes, and
and that's what I was just about to say, because I've heard you say that you ride a Hoffman BMX bike. So
I have a signature bike through Hoffman, the Wade frame. So I'm pretty proud of it.
So, for those that don't know, real quick, let's talk about I could go buy a bike at Walmart, but obviously it's not entirely going to be set up for BMX riding and all that kind of stuff. So what is it about a Hoffman bike that makes it stand out and makes it like kind of like the go-to vehicle that you want to use when you go into a competition?
Okay, so BMX bikes in general, like what you just mentioned, like there's like your department store bikes, which are like the entry level. That's an entry level bike. So even like the most expensive thing you're going to find at like a Walmart or a Target is still going to be entry level. And it's just because it's kind of a package deal. They put together a package of parts and boom, here it is on a platter. When we build bikes, when you're getting into the sport, amateurs or professionals, like where I am right now, I handpick every single part that's on my bike. So every single nut and bolt, everything on my bike is basically a part that I handpicked because that's what I want to ride, whether it be because I like the way that it looks or because there's a functional reason that's different for my riding. And there's tons and tons of different options for geometry and, height, handlebar height, width, everything, tire pressure, how fat your tires get when you air them up, how skinny they can get, the kind of tread that's on them, the bearings that you have in them, the mechanism inside your hub that works as, in the olden days, it was a freewheel or, a cassette is what we use now, which is everything's internal. All the gears and stuff are internal. It doesn't change gears, but the gear mechanism that goes click, 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 and then binds up when you pedal, it's all internal inside the hub now. And actually the hub that I have currently is a company called Fly Bikes. I I don't have a parts sponsor, so I can pick whatever parts I want, which is actually kind of nice. So I have like the frame sponsor, but then as far as other stuff, I can really piece together the exact bike that I want. And like the hub that I chose is it's this company called Fly Bikes. They make amazing parts. All their parts are unreal, and they have a different type of drive system that works on magnets instead of springs. So there's no springs in it. It's opposing magnets that make it engage, and it's really loud. I don't know if you remember when I was riding, whenever you came to that show, but my bike was like twice as loud as everyone else's. Like it's like the sound it makes when it like coasts. And it's because of that mechanism. I call it a 4-stroke because like everyone else runs a 2-stroke. I got a 4-stroke. It's like, you know, you get a little bit more power out of it. But stuff like that. And, you know, like it's just everyone's got their own style and what they want. And you piece together bikes. And the bike that I have now is probably, if I were to price it out, it's probably in the, you know, $2,500 range, which sounds ridiculous for essentially a kid's bike, a trick bike. Because I mean, it's the same cost as you could buy a motorcycle for that amount of money, you know, like, but it's specialized equipment. It's very specialized equipment that we use. And when you get, it doesn't matter what sport you're into, firearms, for example, you can go off the deep end with specialized equipment for firearms. And everyone knows, like, when you start talking about, oh, what kind of glass are you going to put on that rifle? You're going to spend as much money on the glass or more than you did on the rifle in most cases. So it's like, the same thing is just a different industry, you know, and believe it or not, there's a lot of drama in the BMX industry, and you know, but thankfully there's no drama in the gun industry. So
yeah, exactly. I'm sure, right? So
it's the same. It's just it's always the same stuff, different story, basically. But yeah, so when you start getting into it far enough, you'll quickly find out that a lot of the parts in those entry level bikes will break really quick under the weight. I'm a big guy. I weigh 215 pounds, and like I'm pretty hard on parts just because of my body weight. So like I can bend pedals and cranks just from landing hard, you know, like you all your weight's on it, stuff just gives out. So I have stuff that doesn't give out, which is more of a, specialized part for me, for my style of riding, because it will hold up to the abuse I give it, basically. So, and it's across the board.
Yeah. Well,
you can go as deep as you want, man. That's why I use Noveski rifles, because I got to have the best.
Yeah, well, no, and you know what? It's funny because like even when you look at the firearms world too. So like when I was getting into competition shooting, the idea of being like, oh my god, there's people that spend $2,000 or $3,000 on a pistol. Like, are they crazy? Yeah. But in reality, when you look at it, because like if you're spending that much money on a product that you know is going to be good and last for a while. Mm-hmm. Then you really got to average it out. It's not a $2,000 pistol, because if that $2,000 pistol lasts you 10 years, it costs you $200 a year to have it,
right?
Which is not an unbelievable, like. It's funny because you'll be like, oh my god, I just spent $2,000 on a pistol. Well, over the next 10 years, figure out how much you spend on ammo that you don't get to take back home with you. Because when you look at that number, then the $2,000 pistol doesn't actually seem that bad, because you're like, oh my god, I spent $10,000 on ammunition over the last 10 years, and I don't even get to bring the ammo back. Like, it's all in the berm, you know? So
right.
Like, every time you shoot a 20 cent round, you might get a 10-cent piece of used brass back, but that's it.
Right. Well, and on top of that, if you've got lower quality parts and components, you're going to go through those. You're going to have to replace them. And if you have the high quality stuff, they don't wear out the same, so you don't have to replace it. So it's kind of like spend the money up front, or have, what is it, buy once, cry once type, like you don't have to go through replacing stuff over and over again in some cases. Now there are some, firearms out there that will last you and don't cost anything, but do you really want to be seen with that? That's the next thing. I won't name any names, but we probably all have the companies we dislike their stuff or whatever, so we'll just leave that blank. Fill in yourself.
Right, exactly. Yeah, for sure. All right, so we've talked about BMX. We've talked about how you got. So I can tell you right now, if I got to the top of that ramp, I definitely would be like, yeah, nope, I'm good. I like the view from up here.
Good, funny story about Mega Ramp and kind of that whole like mindset going to like what you would think. One year, was it 2007 or 8? It was in Staples Center. It was out in LA in the Staples Center, and the mega ramp was inside the Staples Center. It was really cool because the ramp is so big. Literally, we're starting from the upper deck, like the nosebleeds where the roll-in starts, and then goes down to the whole floor to the other side of the arena. And Jay Leno used to have, like, you'd have comedians that would go out and do little bits where they would go to events, they would go around and interview people, and then they put together their little comedy skit, and then come back and have a little piece to put on before the show started or at the start of the show or whatever. He did one on the X Games one year. So he had a guy a comedian go down and like go to the different events and make jokes and talk to people and stuff so they could put together a little funny skit for the show. And they showed up at the big air ramp during practice. And it was like right as like the BMX practice was kind of finishing up, and I'm one of the only guys that rides like all of the practices. Like I show up when the practice starts, and I leave when it's over because we get to ride that thing like 1 week out of the year. So I try to make the most of it, right? Because it's so much fun. And so I'm still hanging around. I'm like the only BMXer still lingering around. There was a couple guys here and there that he came up to, and he kind of came down to the little athlete area where we're changing tires. We pop a tire or getting pads on, whatever, all of our gear's down there. And he's kind of going around asking like, hey, would anyone want to do an interview for the Tonight Show? And we have this idea where we wanted you to put like a little like kid's bell on your handlebars and some tassels out of the bar ends and ride the ramp. And it would be funny for the skit. Would anybody be interested in doing that? And like most of the guys are like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. That's no. And of course I hear this and I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. Let's go right now. It's like, why the heck not? I don't care. I don't mind looking stupid. Like, holy crap. I got Sports Center clip of the week one time for doing the worm in the flat bottom when I crashed. So I don't mind looking stupid. So I was like, yeah, I'll put these things on my bike and I'll ride it. And he's like, oh, awesome. Like, he's like, you're the first person that's actually agreed to do like this dumb skit. And I was like, all right, let's go. And practice was over. So they're like, oh, you can't go. And I'm like, no, I'm going. So I stuck these things on my bike and the little bell. And he wanted me to jump the ramp, hit the quarter pipe, and in the air, ding, 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 ring the bell in the air, and then basically land and come back and come right to him to do the interview. So it was all one shot. And I go to the top, and they're like, no, practice is closed. I was like, Rebel Run. I just went right past them, basically. And so they film this, and I come down, I do the thing, ring the bell in the air, and stop, come right up to him and stop. And he's like, let me ask you a question. What goes through your mind when you're flying through the air up there? And I was like, I mean, it's like flying. So it's fun, really. I mean, no, I'm just having a good time. And he was like, have you ever landed on your balls? And I said, yeah. And he was like, oh, no. He goes, I'll tell you what would be going through my mind. Please don't land on my balls. Please don't land on my balls. And I was like, ha, 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 or whatever. Like, you clearly don't ride because this is your idea of a joke. So I was like, okay. And he goes, have you ever landed on your balls? And I was like, oh, yeah, definitely. And then out of nowhere, he just goes, would you be willing to reenact that moment right here, right now for Jay Leno and the rest of America? And he puts the microphone in my face. And I have no idea how my brain actually came up with this so quickly. But I was like, yes, I would be glad to. And he goes, like, kind of like, he thought he was going to like get me to be like, heck no. But I said yes. And he goes, really? Like, oh, okay, cool. And like, he was surprised. And I was like, all right, you ready? And he was like, yeah. And I hit him in the nuts. And like, he's just like, oh, he like hits the ground. And he's like, oh, he's rolling around. The camera guys are like shaking, like laughing. And then he's like trying to get up. And I'm like, do you get that? You want me to show you again? And he's like, no, I got it. We're good. That wraps up the whatever segment. And then like afterwards, the camera guys are like, yeah, you know how to make the reel, man. I was like, definitely got to hit a guy in the dick right on Jay Leno.
Is that clip available to be seen anywhere? Is that like on YouTube or something?
Man,
I'm gonna have to search that.
I've looked for it. I haven't been able to find it, but I know several people. My TM, I rode for Levi's at the time, jeans at the time, and my TM on Levi's had no idea that I did that interview and just saw the show and was like, oh my gosh. She calls me and goes, this lady, Kathy McGrath, amazing team manager. She's like, I just watched you hit somebody in the private on Jay Leno. And I was like, oh, it was on there. Oh, man. I never actually got to see the actual show because it was going on during the X Games. And I had usually around that time, I have tons of stuff I've got to do, like all these little things around. Like if you want to have like extra guest passes, you do autograph signings and you go to parties and you do all these little events and stuff around the X Games. So I was like too busy to, be watching TV at that point. But I didn't get to see it, unfortunately, but I know several people that have seen it. And so it was on there and I've looked for it a little bit, but not super hard. So, but yeah, it was, I want to say it was 07.
I'm gonna do some research. I'm gonna see if I can find a clip somewhere because that just sounds comical. And knowing you now and having because you rolled through town not too long ago and you crashed here at my place and then we went out and shot the next morning. The room I'm in right now, right? So so now that I spent some time with you, I was like, oh, yeah, I could see him doing that. Yep, doesn't matter that it'd be on national television. It sounded like the funny thing to do.
Just a little tap.
It
was a good one.
What's the capital of Thailand? Bangkok.
Yeah, the old nut shot. I couldn't believe I actually thought of it. I was like, literally in my head, I was just like a light bulb. I was like, I'm going to punch this dude in the dick right now. Yes, I'll do that. And it was good because this guy, he thrives on kind of like making fun of the athletes for his bit, for his comedy. So it was funny to kind of give him the old switcheroo.
Yeah, turn it around. Yeah, exactly, right. So, all right. So now we're doing this extreme thing and all that kind of stuff. Tell me how, because I got to assume that being in Texas, firearms is it's like being a Mandalorian. Like this is the way, right? Like if you're in Texas, it's almost like
weapons are a part of our religion. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty America down here.
So what's the first gun that you ever bought, or let me hold on. The first gun you ever received, was it a gift or did you buy it yourself?
Now, if we're talking an actual, obviously BB gun, I got a BB gun when I was a kid. That was a gift. Daisy, one of the little pump up guns. But legit firearm, with gunpowder involved. I actually bought two at the same time. I bought a Glock 17C, which is the compensated version of the 17. With the little holes in the top of the barrel, and then I bought a Mossberg 500 pump shotgun, and that was around. Let's see, when was that? It was 2003, 2, somewhere in there. I wasn't really in. I've been familiar with guns all my life growing up. My father taught me gun safety. I don't remember not knowing how to handle a gun safely. The 4 rules and it's been ingrained in me since I was yay big. And so I grew up shooting guns. My dad always had firearms and he would take us out and shoot. We had a little range on the back of our property. We live outside of town. And so I was very familiar with them, but I never really, got into them wanting to own them necessarily because I was so busy with BMX stuff. And then one day, I didn't even know what the catalyst was, but I was like, I need to get some firearms. So I bought a pistol and a shotgun. And so it was a Glock 17C and a Mossberg 500. Those were my first two. And I still have that. I actually, that's the Glock that I had with me when I came and shot with you when I came to visit. It's basically a Zev now. The only thing that's still stock on it is the plastic, which has been stippled. And everything else is completely Zev tech, the rest of it, just because I had a buddy that worked for them for a while, and he got me the bro deal and a bunch of stuff. And yeah, I mean that gun, I basically turned a $500 gun into a like what you said, like a $3,000 gun. So
the Gucci Glock.
It's a Gucci Glock.
It is a Gucci Glock. Yeah.
And it
now do you still have it? Because I don't recall. Do you still have the compensated barrel in there, or did you just put a standard barrel in there now?
No. It's got a threaded barrel in there for suppressors and stuff on it now.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so I still have that. The slide and the barrel they're sitting in my safe right now, and I've had the. I've been looking for a Gen 3 frame for a while, just because I want to put together another 17 so I can build that one back up, or maybe I'll. I got into stippling a while back, so I do stippling work now on the side, and I might even do that and get a new frame for the Zev and put my old frame back with the original receiver and upper and whatnot. but we'll
Got
see.
to get the matching serial numbers, man. Make it all a complete package
Yeah,
again.
make it legit.
You ever thought about doing like a polymer 80 and swapping that out or something like that? Or
You know,
I don't.
I don't mind those. I've worked on a lot of them for buddies. Like I've stippled a lot of them, done grip work on a lot of those. I don't know. I prefer the real deal. Like I
The
would rather
OEM, like
have
original.
an actual Glock frame over like a polymer 80 or whatever. So.
Mm-hmm.
But
Understandable.
I'm not opposed to it, but it's kind of like one of those things. Like when you first get into guns, and I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast right now can identify with this. You just want to get as many guns as you can, so you're just buying guns. You just buy, you know, the whole buy the largest safe you can find because guess what? It's not big enough. Like that type of thing. You just keep buying guns. Then after a while, yeah, you got all these guns, and you can go out and you can just like throw a bunch of lead into the dirt and you know goof off and play with them or whatever, like at target practice. After a while, though, you get to where you're just like, well, I don't need to buy another gun. I already have 9 ARs and you know all the Russian things and all that stuff, and like now I just want to make the ones I have better. So you get into the whole like you get a couple of your guns that end up being your favorite guns that they're the ones your go-tos that you always shoot, and you start upgrading them. And this is the same thing with bikes. You get your favorite bike and you start upgrading it, and then before you know it, you've got a Gucci Glock, or you know a Noveske AR or something, you know like that, you know, and of course you got to have Vortex glass on it because it's the best glass, right?
I second that absolutely 100%.
And then you got to get the red dot for your pistol, and of course you get the Vortex red dot too. But it's the same thing. You just start upgrading the stuff that you have, and then before you know it, you end up with an entirely different piece. And for me, the frame runs along the same lines. Like if I want to have just boost my number of guns, yeah, I'll get some polymer 80s or whatever. But if I want to actually have a gun that I will enjoy shooting more, I'll probably actually get an actual Glock frame, or you know whatever other brand it might be, you know, SIGs or you know Springfield or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it kind of.
I haven't jumped into the 1911s yet. Someday I'll get into the FUD gun, but
well, you remember okay. Let me ask you this: what makes the 1911 a FUD gun? Is it the fact that it's a 1911, or is it the fact that it has to be a 45 ACP? Because I feel like it's the caliber that makes it the FUD gun.
It's the fact of when you look at the gun and you know exactly what type of shooter is shooting that gun. That's what makes it a FUD gun. It's the guy that comes to the range. I don't need that plastic piece of crap. This has won 2 world wars. That's what makes it a FUD gun. 1911s are amazing. I love them. Like they're they're pieces of art, and like I would love to own one. I just haven't gotten there yet. I will at some point though, I'm sure.
You know, I think I know a guy.
Do you?
Who might be able to get you squared away with a pretty badass 1911? So we'll maybe have to make something happen here. Now the question is though, would you want it in 45 or would you want to have like a 9mm 38 Super?
Yes.
Both. Yes,
matching
sets.
Yes. A matching set. You gotta have. Yeah, I mean,
sometimes guns can be kind of like Pokemon. You gotta catch them all.
You gotta catch them all. You gotta catch them all, and then once you have them all, you gotta upgrade them all, or at least your favorite ones. But yeah, no, honestly, like, I don't know, like, if it came down to it, if it was a gun that I was gonna carry, I would probably go with the 9, just because of capacity. I am a big proponent of having more capacity is never a bad thing, because you can buy the technology in ammunition right now. You can get a 9mm round that will expand and be comparable to a 45. I mean, obviously a 45 it's a freaking powerhouse, but you can get a 9mm that will be comparable as far as what it does when it hits a soft meat-like substance. And if you've got 10 or 15 or 20 more of those, that's never a bad thing. So,
no, I agree, and you know, it's because
right.
It's like that thing. It's you know, I still have a 40 Smith and Wesson. Actually, I've got several 40 Smith and Wesson in my safe because of competition purposes. I have to have it for the scoring value that comes up. But like, man, if tomorrow they said, hey, we're just going to go minor for all scoring, those things would never come out of my safe again because I would just swap over to 9.
Right.
Because, as a lot of studies and stuff like that have started showing, it's like, shot placement is way more important than the size of the bullet and all that kind of stuff, right? Like you see those the pictures of like the guy with the 9mm. It's got the grouping in the chest, the grouping in the head, and then it's got the 145 hole. Yeah, it's like, don't worry, he'll bleed out.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no, I'll stick with the chest. And I've even had people or heard people say that you're too accurate. Like, what do you mean? Like, well, if you just keep shooting the same spot in the person's body, it's like you're not doing any more damage. You got to be combat accurate. You want to spread the love, kind of thing. And I'm just like,
that's just that's because their groups are this big. That's so
yeah, exactly. I'm like, no. I definitely want to account. Every time I send a round, I want to be accountable for where that round is going, and I prefer it go into my intended target rather than.
I'm pretty sure the triangle is a good spot for all those rounds. If you can, if they all go in that spot, you're not really going to have too much of a problem. But granted,
I think there's actually
everything changes under stress.
Record.
So
yeah, for sure, absolutely.
And
and I can almost say too, it's I'm very lucky. And I hope I continue to be lucky in that I never experienced that kind of stress. Like the most stress that I've ever had is in a competition setting. I want that to be the most stress I ever experience. Right.
Yeah. I don't ever want to have to use, I carry every single time that I can feasibly do it. If I'm not on a trip where I can't, sometimes it's hard to fly with firearms, especially if you're going places that you can't legally carry. So I'm not going to, take my firearms if I'm going on a trip where I have to go somewhere I can't carry. But if I can carry and it's feasible, and reasonable for me to have my firearm with me, it's going to be on my body for protection for myself, my loved ones, and other people as well. But, I hope I never, ever, ever have to do that. My wife and I, we both did Krav Maga for years. We were about 5 or so years. And it wasn't like one of these YouTube schools like trashy. It's like a legit Krav Maga where the roots of it go back all the way to like the guys who started it, and stuff. It was a very good school that teaches the actual methods and stuff. And that mindset never goes away. It's more of a mindset than anything. Yeah, there's techniques and stuff, but it's more of a mindset. And it's just one of those things where like I'm going to protect myself and others if I have the ability to, and I want to give myself the best odds of that. And I understand through the training that I've had with the hand-to-hand stuff with Krav that we do a lot of stress testing where you try to basically recreate a situation where your body's under stress. Yes, it's going to be different than a real life situation where you have like all the terrifying thoughts of like what's happening and trying to figure out what's going on. But you basically, the way we would simulate that is by essentially doing exercise to the point where you're fatigued, where you feel like you can't move. And then we'll, turn the lights out with a strobe light so it confuses you, and we'll crank up like heavy metal music. So you've got all this noise and all these conflicting things coming in. You're dead tired. And then someone comes up and puts you in a headlock or punches at you or whatever, and you have to defend yourself. So you learn these techniques and then you test it out under, as close to a real life scenario as possible, but simulated stress. And you find out really quick that your technique goes to crap under stress like that. Like whatever you train at, if you're training at say 100%, this is where you train at. You add stress, and not even real life stress, the stress that we're able to do, you're instantly knocking it down to like 40%. Of your technique is like 40% as good as it was when you were training, when you could think about everything and do everything the proper way and blah, 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 blah. But so you're down to 40%. Add real life stress, you're even lower than that. So you really have to train at a high level for it to come out naturally under stress. And that being said, that translates straight over to firearms, because if you're training, like you're saying, you're too accurate under stress, you're not going to be as accurate as you are when you're just static shooting or practicing or whatnot. And that's why we do drills where we run around and do stuff where you get tired and you're breathing hard and you're trying to, or like what that confidence drill that we worked on when I was out there visiting you, where you just keep going back and like stuff like that. Like it really like you find out where you're at real quick. So why wouldn't you give yourself the best possible odds by, say, having 20 rounds in your magazine instead of 7?
No,
That's
absolutely.
kind of
And you know what?
my rationale for that.
You bring a good point too about the idea of getting some formal training for hand to hand stuff too. Because for my mindset when it comes to self defense too, it's not, it shouldn't be a I've got a gun, I'm good.
Oh yeah, and a
Because
lot of
that's
people. It's sad. A lot of people think that they think if they have a gun, they will be in control of the situation because they have the power, right? Oof.
right.
What
And
happens
and
when you
so I
can't get
think
to it?
for me it's always about having layers. Like it's almost like the law enforcement side, right? Like you have to have a level of elevation. You got to have certain steps. If someone wants to take it to this level, you don't necessarily want to go above to the next level. You just need to meet them at their level and then
Yeah, and
be
you want
the
to look at
dominant factor.
something that's really scary is do the actual test, like the law enforcement LEO like proficiency shooting test. I mean, and you find out what a passing grade is on that, and you're like, oof, like even our law enforcement needs to be training more, like because it's not as hard as you might think to get a passing grade on an LE proficiency shooting
Oh,
test.
it's not. You know what scares me is I've had conversations with law enforcement. It's like, so what gun are you carrying? They go, oh, it's a Glock 9. Oh, okay. Yeah, never mind. This conversation's done because you don't even know the model of the gun that you're carrying, and
Right,
you do that
right.
for a living. That kind of scares me that you can't say it's a Glock 17
You do
or a
realize
Glock
the
19 or
first one
whatever.
was
Like,
17, and they go up above that, right? They just keep
yeah,
going.
right. Like the Glock 9 isn't that the porcelain ceramic one that doesn't isn't seen through moto detectors and that John McClain talked about?
Yes.
Not the real John McClain, but the fake one, right? So
Yippee-ki-yay.
exactly. So now.
Hands.
Now, excuse me. As far as the shooting stuff goes, so obviously you carry a Zev Glock by the sounds of it.
So no,
Um,
that's I carried that for a long time. Currently, I have a 43X that I carry. That's got a
okay,
red dot and the fancy stipples and the threaded barrel and all the fun gizmos.
got it.
I've
Okay,
got
so
the shield mags, so I have the 15 plus 1 in the gun, and then I have an extra mag that's 15 plus 5. So I've got lots of freedom seeds to throw.
nice.
And I
Okay,
practice
and
doing
then
from concealed.
which is important for sure. Then we've talked about you've got some Noveske rifles, right? So what is your like? Let's talk a little bit about like some of your like what's your favorite kind of setup if you're gonna go out for a day of shooting, and you could pick one pistol, one rifle, one shotgun. What would be the guns that you would want to take out for a day on the range? And how are they set up too? Like so, obviously you can
Right.
say, "Well, I've got a Glock," but like you know, if you've got a specific setup, red dots or optics or anything like that, like explain what some of your favorite go to gear is.
Well, I'll take the Glock 9, the Pump 12, and the 223-556. I had a guy say
Smart
that
ass.
one time. He was like, "Oh yeah, I hear you guys." This guy stopped by the house that lives around. He's like, "I hear you guys shooting down here sometimes. You know, I got me an AR-15." I was like, "Oh yeah, what do you guys?" He's like, "It's a Colt 223-556," and I was like, "Okay." All right.
Both at the same time.
I was like, I'm just gonna leave it there. We know.
Yep.
I know. Yeah.
I know the extent of this
Say right
conversation now, and it's
you're not gonna understand anything I say from this point forward. So I'm just gonna leave it there and have a nice conversation man to man with you. But no. So if I'm going to the range, just like what we did the other day, just to have a good time, I would probably take my Zev because I prefer shooting my Zev as like, pistol wise. I know I can comfortably shoot that gun out to 70, 80 yards, which I know that because I do that confidence drill quite often. The furthest I have shot that gun was about 410 yards, but it took me a handful of shots to hit an oxyacetylene tank at 410. But
oh Jesus.
the confidence drill, the farthest I ever made it back was 130 on the confidence drill. But I will admit, I did go over 3 shots on a couple. So for anyone that's listening, the confidence drill, you start at 10 yards and you have a steel target and you have 3 chances to hit the steel from every 10-yard increment as you move back. And the more people you have, the more fun it is. So if you have a big group of people, it's really fun because everyone gets 3 chances to hit the steel at 10 yards. You have strong hand, weak hand, and both hands. Those are your 3 options. You can only do each one time. So if you shoot strong hand and you miss, you can't shoot strong hand again. You have to shoot either weak hand or both hands. And if you miss the second time, whatever it is, you're down to 1. So the best strategy is you start with your weak hand, you then go to your strong hand, and then you go to your most stable platform, both hands, right? So you want your third shot to count. Ideally, you want to hit all of them with your offhand because then it's just one shot. You save ammo, you go all the way back, and you look like a badass, right? All your friends, you're like, yeah, I'm cool. I can go way far back with my offhand. The guy who actually showed me this drill was a recon Marine, former recon Marine. If there is such a thing as a former Marine, there's not. But and he did it all the way to 100 yards weekend, like no problem. And he just stopped there because no one else made it that far with him. He was like, okay. He goes, to be fair, I do this all the time, so I have lots of practice. But so if you pass, if you hit it on your first shot, you're good to go. You move back to the next spot. If it takes 3 shots, doesn't matter. If you miss all 3, you're out. So your group gets significantly smaller around the 40 to 50 yard mark. It starts to really like narrow down to the guys that can actually handle a pistol well. And it's just fun to see how far back you can go. And I think we made it did we make it to 90 the other day? 80 or 90?
We made about 90 was where we were pushing it because after that we were having to get into the creek.
The creek bed
behind us and stuff.
I'm trying to I think I missed all 3 at 90. I think I that was my first failure.
I'm ashamed to say as the pro shooter, although I'll say this, and this is not necessarily to be an excuse, but I was shooting a Glock 19.
Not a 9?
So shorter barrel and shorter sight radius and all.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think you gave me 3 1-ups in the Mario terms because I think the first time I missed was at either 60 or 70, and then after that it was like I failed twice at.
It's always a bummer when
once at 80, once at 90.
You miss all 3 at like 40, and you're just like, I'm ashamed.
Yeah. See, now there's another game I used to play, and it's a lot of fun when you have a good group of people, and it's called Chase the Rabbit. So that's where someone gets to go up and shoot a target. They put a hole in it, and then everyone's goal is to put their bullet through that same hole, and whoever's furthest from the hole is knocked out. And then the person that wins the round gets to set the next target. So the best thing to do, like especially if you got like a group of right-handed people and you want to be a dick, is and like your friends love to flinch low left, is that you actually put the shot on the left side of the target because so then when they flinch, they completely miss the target and they get knocked out automatically. But that's a game I always play called Chase the Rabbit, and then whoever's furthest away,
if you miss the whole target. Multiple people get knocked out for not getting on paper.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you really want to be a dick, that's how you set it up.
Your tricks. If you shoot to the right,
it's just super fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and it's a fun game, like I said, in a group, and then as you go, whoever's furthest away gets knocked out, and then you just do another round. But yeah,
it wouldn't be too fun with 2 people because you'd be over in one round every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you didn't go through the same hole. I see a little bit of a grease mark out there. You're done. But no, that's good. There's another drill. Speaking of drills, it's really fun where you essentially start at 60 yards. We didn't do this one. I think I told you about it. But this one, the way that's really fun to do is with an AR and a pistol, and you alternate between the 2 platforms. And you start at 60 yards, and you go rifle on steel, transition to pistol on steel. You hit with both. You then reholster, run up 10 yards, same thing, and you go 10-yard increments up, 10-yard increments back, and whoever gets back the fastest wins. So ideally, you want to have 2 targets going slightly away from each other so that you can move up in front of the other person without being downrange, and you basically just drag race down and back. And it's really fun to a lot of people because you have it's like a relay race. So you have a bunch of people waiting. So you go up and back, and the next person's in, and whoever's group finishes first wins. So that's a really fun game too. I wanted to get to that, but we didn't actually get to it when we were out there. We ran out of time. But back to the original question, my Zev Tech would be my pistol, 9mm, with a red dot. I am a red dot shooter. I enjoy the red dot. I can shoot open sights, but red dots are more fun and they look cooler, right? You get the Steez points for having the cool stuff all over your gun, right? And then as far as AR platform, I'd probably take an AR over like a Russian variant, AK or something of that nature. Noveski, obviously. I have a little 7.9-inch SBR that I got from Noveski that is just, it's my baby. I love that thing. I've killed so many pigs with that gun. And it's got, right now, it's got the Vortex Razor, Gen 2 Razor 1 to 6 E model on it. And I like that scope because I can essentially use it as a red dot as well on one power, because it's a true one, and it's got the illuminated red dot in it. I can pop it on, open both eyes on one power, and use it like a red dot, kind of, as long as your head's in the right spot. You have less wiggle room than you do with like a holographic sight, because a holographic sight, you can move your head around, you can still see it in the window, but with a scope, you still have to have your cheek weld in the right spot, but you can use that like a red dot. So I do enjoy that, but I'll also sometimes alternate back. I'll put like a little Viper on it, the little micro red dot on the riser mount. And I like that because of how light it is. It's just really nice. It's a really nice small package, and it's lightweight. And boop, I actually have a bag that I carry it in. It's just a tennis racket bag, so you can pop it in there, put some mags in there. I have a little 20-round magazine that I can put in, so it still fits in with the magazine in it, and you can walk around town and no one knows you've got a rifle. So not that I walk around town with a rifle all the time, but sometimes it's like it's like kind of like the truck gun, keep it under the seat, and then you don't freak people out if you have to get it out and go inside or whatever, because you're not like one of those people that marches around displaying their guns because they want a situation with the police.
Right.
But so that little, it's essentially an 8-inch SBR. That's my go-to on that platform for a rifle. And then shotguns, I'm a pump guy, man. I love my Mossy 500, man. I'll take it all day. Or Remington 870. I'm a fan of that as well. But the Mossberg was the first gun I bought, so I still shoot that gun to this day. And I bought another one that has the 20-inch barrel, so it has the extended magazine underneath it. Now, granted, I understand it's nothing compared to your extended magazine. I know you were like, you think that's an extended magazine? He goes to his safe and pulls out this thing that sticks this far past the barrel.
It was a Crocodile Dundee moment. You call that a knife? No, that's a knife. Like it was. It was one of the few times. It was one of the few times where I got to brag about how mine was bigger.
That thing is beautiful, though, man. That's a great gun, but yeah, that would be my three choices probably. Now, I mean, it depends on what you want to play with, though, because I also have a Vepr 12, which is essentially an AK 12 gauge, but it's like the Segas, but Segas are kind of not. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the Sega 12s because they're real picky on what they shoot a lot of times. All the ones I've had experience with, at least, are picky. You put the real cheap bird shot through. Like when it comes to shotguns, I feel like you're just blasting and having a good time, and it's a lot less about the chase the rabbit stuff where you're trying to be like super accurate. You're just trying to clays or whatever. You're having a good time, right? So I don't want to spend
close is good enough
money on ammo. So I'm just going to go buy the bird shot or the clay shot, something like that. And in my experience with the Segas, they just don't do well with the cheaper ammo, which is the stuff that is more fun to shoot, in my opinion. When we're goofing off of that. So I have the Vepr 12, which is, it's an actual Russian-made AK 12 gauge, but it's got mag wells and stuff. It doesn't have the rock-in mags. It actually has like a mag well that drops in and a bolt catch on it. And I put a nicer trigger in there, so it's nice and light. I wasn't able to get the CMC to fit in there, and I actually brought that up to Jack, and he was like, "Oh, I'll have to look at that because of the the bolt catch. There's not room for the drop-in CMC in that one. Now I do have an AK in the safe that does have a CMC, and it is beautiful. It's a beautiful trigger in that gun, which is
so for
trigger costs as much as the dang gun, so it's like." It's a weird.
Yeah, no. So I'm an AR Gold guy when it comes to my triggers, my preferred triggers, but they don't make AK triggers. So when I had Rifle Dynamics build me we call it the Blue Label AK in 223. I was able to have CMC send me one of their AK triggers, and we got it fitted in there. And I will admit, it is a nice trigger. If AR Gold made one for the AK, it would have been an AR Gold in there, but they didn't. So I put a CMC in it, and it is actually a fantastic trigger. And knowing the people from CMC, because I mean, even though I shoot for AR Gold, Kelly had a relationship with her. She actually worked for them for a while. So I've gotten to meet a lot of the people, and I do think they actually make really, really good products. They're just not AR Gold, which is who I have on the logo I rock on my shoulder, right? But for those of you that have never tried the CMC triggers or anything, I mean, I would highly suggest they are fantastic triggers. The one I haven't had, I've tried them at shows, but I haven't actually had a chance to use them just in training purposes and stuff like that. Are the Glock drop-in triggers? Have you had any experience with those triggers from CMC?
So I had one of the Glock ones, but I don't. What is that one? I think that one ended up in my brother's 19. So I don't shoot it as often. I actually don't. I don't like the little the shape of the bottom of in my Glock.
The little it's got like that little
kick
out.
The ARs, I love the flat trigger. I actually like the little combat curve trigger a little bit better that they do, but the flat trigger, I'm definitely a fan of flat triggers, but I prefer the Zev trigger, to be honest, in my Glock. But
okay, yeah,
it's a good trigger,
and
it's a great trigger. The CMC is a great trigger as well, in that. But as far as like the AK goes, the one that I put in the Vepr, because I didn't have room for the CMC to drop in there, it was the ALG AK trigger that they make. That thing is not very expensive. It's very affordable, and it is. It's
phenomenal.
You wouldn't know that is not like a high end top tier trigger, because it's very crisp, very light. If you're into that sort of thing, and it's nice. I mean, you shot that gun a little bit. I brought it out when I was there, that 12 gauge Vepr, and man, that trigger's nice in that. I really like the. I did have to modify it to fit in there, because again, it didn't want to go in with all that extra stuff in there for the bolt catch. But once I got it in there, beautiful.
No, yeah, the ALGs are a fantastic trigger too, especially for the price point that you can get them for. Absolutely. So,
yeah.
No, man, and yeah, we're definitely gonna have to. What was that?
I was gonna say, I have a Remington 700 model bolt gun, and I actually have a Timney trigger in that, and that thing is phenomenal. Also, I really enjoy that trigger, but it's very. I think it's like, good grief, 1.5 pounds maybe, or something ridiculous like that. You just breathe on it and it goes. But when you're trying to shoot, small things at 1,000 yards, it's nice to have something that doesn't affect the gun when you pull it.
Yeah. So. Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, and actually, there's a lot of good triggers out there now. There was a time where you really had, like, there were only a handful of companies that people would trust, like, their lives with. Like, they would put it in their rifle that they were going to put on duty, or have as their shit hit the fan gun, in their closet or something like that. But nowadays, I mean, there really are a ton of great companies out there that can make some solid. Once the technology's out there and people. Let the pioneers figure out all the mistakes.
Yeah, what doesn't.
Then it's easy to learn from others' mistakes and stuff. But and when we, because where was I? I think I was I going to South Carolina? Is that that was the day where you came out, and I had to fly out somewhere, and that's why our little shooting session had to be cut short.
Yeah, I think it was South Carolina, because I saw my buddy Wayne Hammer at Microtech.
Oh yes, yeah, that's right.
Picture, and it was just your back. You were loading a magazine or something for something. You were doing something, and I was like, I know that guy. I recognize that buddy.
Oh man, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Wayne did come by and say hi, and I felt bad because he came by to say hi as I had like a VRF 14 like out on the table, completely taken apart, and I was like covered in gun oil and stuff, and And I told him, I was like, hey, man, come swing back again in like 10, 15 minutes. Let me just get this thing cleaned up and put back together. And then, I mean, we were just slammed that entire event. So I didn't get a chance to talk to him as much as I did, as much as I got to. But yeah, then you hit me up and you're like, oh, man, Wayne's my dude. Make sure you give him some love. I'm like, well, if he comes by again, I will. But Jesus.
He's an old school BMXer too. He used to go like a lot of the same events that I went to back in the early 2000s. So I actually built.
I didn't know that.
I built a bike for him for a couple years back. I put together a bike for him and hooked him up. He's hooked me up with stipple work and stuff. And honestly, when I got into stippling, he's the one that really like showed me the ropes and taught me a lot of really, really good tricks on how to do specific stuff when it comes to grip work and modification. So Wayne's a great dude. So Wayne Hammer.
Nice. I know. Yeah. So as far as the stippling goes, you've got an Instagram page where people can go see your work. What's that Instagram page?
M Wade Works. So it's at M Wade Works. Just MWADEWORKS. M Wade Works. Yeah. And I just anytime I do something, most everything I do is just buddy stuff, buddy's guns and whatnot. But and then I like do quite a few like AR grips and stuff like that too as well. But whatever. I mean, if it's plastic, you can melt it. You can have fun with it. But I really enjoyed kind of like it's an art form essentially, shaping grips into something that's a little bit more ergonomic and that you can hang on to even with a wet soapy hand. So that's the idea. Make your gun more useful.
Yeah. Once you stipple a grip, it's kind of hard to shoot anything else other than what you're able to do with a stippling job and a good one at that. Cause I mean,
once you get into stippling, it's kind of hard to look at a stipple job and not critique it too. Cause I remember you had just gotten, your gun back, one of your guns back and it had a stipple job on it. And I remember like, it's a great, they did a great job on it. Like in no way am I talking mess on it by any means, but I was just like, ooh, yeah, I wouldn't do it that way. And like this and that. It's funny. The stupid stuff you notice when you get into something, the deeper you get into something, the more you notice the minute details, and, but man, that thing felt great in the hand though. I think it was that Terran tactical gun that was it the Terminalist gun or whatever?
Yeah, I got the Terminalist Glock 19 from them, and
it's beautiful. They did a great job on that. They did a great job on that.
Yeah. Well, and I think the only thing you really said was like I would have put a border on it, but
the border, just borders. Like I'm big into putting borders on it and stuff, and getting a nice, real crisp, clean edge and stuff. But I love how they kind of put like their logo into the edge of the stipple and stuff, and it's a cool, great looking gun. It felt great in the hand too. Does the job for sure.
And it shot really well. Still does shoot very well.
That's what you were shooting on the confidence drill. Wasn't that the gun?
Yeah, and I'd only had, I think up to that point, I only had like maybe 20 rounds through it. So I really got to, that was my chance to kind of like break it in, get a feel for it and all that kind of stuff.
James Reese would have hit that, man. James Reese would have hit that target at every.
I know. Unfortunately, I ain't him.
Old Chris Pratt.
Yeah, I've been told that me and Chris Pratt, I've been told we look very alike, except that I'm a little bit taller and our faces are different.
Okay, yeah, just slightly. So
I
never would have told.
Right on, dude. Yeah, right. So right on. Well, so let's. I've got a couple fast fire questions I tend to answer or ask just as a kind of a exit out, and then we'll give you a chance to kind of wrap things up on your end if there's anyone else you want to say hi to or give shout outs or anything like that. So we'll just go in with this. Now, this question I came up with just because like for me in the city, I said it one way and then I moved out here to the Midwest and apparently I've been saying it wrong the whole life. So how do you pronounce it? Is it soda or is it pop?
Soda.
Thank you. Someone that agrees.
I say soda. I definitely don't call every single soda a Coke. That's not cool because it ain't a Coke.
Right.
Pop is like more north, like that's more like Minnesota. They got the pop up there. Oh, soda pop, Yeah. But yeah, I say soda. I mean, I feel like that's pretty common down here where I am in Texas. But that being said, my mom is from Pennsylvania and my dad is from New York. So I don't really have a Texas accent because I grew up because of the household I grew up in. Now, I did grow up with people in my area, good old East Texas. I can turn that accent on anytime I want. Tell you what, if I'm around the right people, it'll just come out without me even thinking about it. I can turn that accent on. And like you say things like, yeah, all the time. Like, yeah, this my cat. But I definitely have friends that if I hang around them, the accent will creep out just because I'm around them and it just like it wants company. But other than that, yeah, I'm kind of I think I don't have an. Do I sound like I have an accent to you when I speak normally?
No, you
Yeah.
sound like a pretty normal dude. Well, you sound like a guy that isn't necessarily from Texas. Like there's
Right.
there's living in that South area. You got to have some sort of twang or hitch or giddy up or something in the way you speak. But you kind of just sound
My
like a
wife
normal
is
person.
my wife is from Tucson, and she's lived in Texas now longer than she lived in Tucson in Arizona, and which we actually just talked about the other day. And she's like, "That's weird. Like I've been a Texan longer than I've been an Arizonian." But she like when she moved here, she was kind of excited to like adopt like some of like the little isms of like Texas. So she like legit just started saying y'all just because she wanted to Texas. Yeah, I want to say y'all. So she actually said it. And I still, when I hear her say it, she's been saying it for good grief, 13 years now. It still sounds weird to me. I'm just like, did
Yeah.
you say y'all? Because I don't,
you
it's
you
very,
sit on a throne of lies.
yeah, you smell like beef and cheese. Uh, it's very rare that I say y'all. I can't even think of the last time I actually said it, but
Well, you
yes,
just did. So
I did say it, but I said it in a natural form, like of the
yeah. All
y'all.
right.
Fire away.
Flip flops or go barefoot.
Flip flops. I have literally had flip flops on today, although I am barefoot right now because I'm in my
See,
house.
I can't do barefoot outside. Like Kelly always talks about like having the
No, no,
grass
no.
go through her toes and stuff, and I'm like, ugh, good. That's disgusting.
I'll put flip flops on. If I'm gonna go outside, I'll put flip flops on or just socks and shoes. I can't do
Yep.
shoes without socks either, or especially can't go outside in just socks. Can't handle that.
Oh yeah.
But
Well, I have PTSD when I go out in my socks because I all of a sudden I have my Asian mother swinging at me with hangers, wondering why I'm putting holes in my
with
socks.
with a
So
flip
I get
flop.
PTSD. Yeah, exactly right. So all
Yeah.
right, hard or soft taco?
Oh, I'm a soft taco. I like soft tacos.
Yes, man.
I
There's a
ate
reason why we get along so
I
well.
ate tacos for lunch today, and I had what they call it a quesadilla. This place, El Lugar Taqueria here in Tyler. If you're ever in East Texas, Tyler or Lindale, I'm taking you to El Lugar. It's my favorite taqueria on the planet, and my boy Edgar runs the downtown El Lugar that's moving soon to Lindale. But that place is amazing. Best tacos on the planet. If you ask my humble opinion. Now, anyone from the Southwest, they'll get upset and tell you that they know best, but they actually don't. In reality, El Lugar is better. But it's basically a burrito, but they call it the super quesadilla, and oh my gosh, so good. But they use like the giant tortilla, and then you get the number 5. So I get number 7 beef all the way. That's the super quesadilla, and I get a number 5 with flour tortilla, and all that is just white cheese and avocado. That's it in a flour tortilla, and it's dessert, dude. Ate it for lunch today, just a couple hours ago. It was amazing.
See, that sounds fantastic to me. But Kelly hates avocado. She can't stand them at all. I'm
What?
like, you're weird. I know, right? I'm like, you're so weird. Avocados are awesome.
I might take back.
Guacamole.
I might take back my greeting to her earlier and just say, I don't know you.
Yeah, she doesn't like guacamole. She calls it cat puke.
Yeah, what is wrong with people, man? What is wrong with people? It's okay.
I know, right?
It's almost forgivable. Almost. But
Yeah,
not
you have to love them, flaws and all, which I do. So
fair enough. Fair enough.
now, would you rather to an event? Would you rather fly or drive?
It really depends where the event is, but I'm probably going to be in my car. I
Now,
enjoy.
are you in your car because you have to be? Like, let's say if no equipment was necessary to be transported, or it was going to be there already by the time you got there, and you had the choice of either driving a car or being flown.
I'd fly.
Which one would you pick?
I'd fly.
Okay.
Yeah, if that was the case. But see, for me, having the events I go to, I have to take my bike. And flying, I've flown. I couldn't even tell you how many flights I've been on over the years. we had to take our bikes apart and pack them up in bags to go on the airplane. And there's tricks to it. Like for a long time, we did golf bags. We'd take our bike apart and stuff it into a golf bag. So when you get to the airport, because if you have a bike in a quote unquote bike box, it's larger than the dimensions of a checked luggage bag. So it's oversized. So they charge you $100 for the oversized checked bag or whatever box. Or they also have like a bike fee. Like so they say if you're traveling with another form of transportation, you have to pay a fee or something stupid like that. So like road bikes and mountain bikes, I feel bad for those dudes because they can't get the wheels are too big, right? But for a 20-inch, you can take that sucker all apart and you can jam it in a golf bag. And golf bags for, the fancy, snooty golfers, they're free. They don't have to pay a dang thing to get them on the airplane. It's just a regular checked luggage cost. So BMXers, being the geniuses that we are, apparently, we decided we would put our bikes, take it all apart and stuff it into a golf bag. And then when you get to the airport, they say, oh, they see a golf bag and they're just like, it's clubs. They don't even ask you what's in it. Or if they ask what's in there, you just say, oh, sporting equipment. Or my favorite is it's a golf bag. And you just leave it at that. That way you're not lying. You're not lying about what's in there. It's like, what's in there?
No,
it's
you're just stating a fact.
Sometimes some golf bags don't necessarily look like quote unquote golf bags. So they're like, oh, what's inside the bag? You're like, oh, it's a golf bag. And they're like, oh, okay. And then that's it. One out of I'd say like every 10 or 15 flights, they'll be like, they'll figure it out. And then there's like, no, $100 extra. It's a bike. And you're just like, so you get away with it more than you don't. But I actually found out an even better method that I've never been charged for. And I do shows. In the past, I've done shows in the Middle East for the troops, where a group of guys with an outfit called Bikes Over Baghdad, we would fly to the Middle East, to Iraq or Kuwait or Bahrain or Qatar, wherever, and we would do shows on bases over there. We show up, we build ramps, do the shows. And for the troops, and it's a blast. It's the most rewarding thing I've ever done on my bike. So it's amazing. Those trips were amazing because hanging out with good people, riding bikes, everything's good. But I went to the PX on the base and, the little store, and they had these bags, these like duffel bag things on roller wheels that fit the dimensions of a checked luggage, the 62-inch, if you add all the width, height, and length up, it has to be under 62 inches. It's under that dimension, but my bike will fit in there if I take both wheels and the handlebars and the forks off. I can stuff it all in there with my other parts, and it's a nice, neat little package. And if they find out it's a bike, it doesn't matter because it's under the size requirements, so they can't legally charge you for it anyway. So, and it actually says that if you go to the web, now this only really applies to BMXers, but if you go to every single airline's website, and I did this, and I looked at their policy for checked luggage, it specifically states that you can travel with a bike for no extra fee if it fits in a bag that's under the 62-inch size requirement for the overall length, width, and height. So anytime I've gotten grief at the airport about it, I'm just like, oh, no, it's under the right height. And if they press it and they're like, no, we have to charge you, I say, go to your website and show me where it says you have to charge me. And inevitably they go there and they see that it actually says bicycle is free if it's in this size. And it's so fun to watch people eat crow. They have the little man syndrome. They want to just charge you for no reason. Like, it's not like they're getting any money out of it. They're just like, I'm having a bad day and you're going to have a bad day too. And
yeah, I know the rules and you don't.
I learned real early on that when you encounter someone like this, it's never a good idea to dish the attitude back. I smile and I'm nice and polite. And I'm just like, oh, okay. If they're giving me a hard time, I'm just nice and polite. And all that happens if you give them attitude back is they make your life worse. So,
yep.
I have been stuck.
I can agree with that.
Overnight at a few airports because there was a flight that I could have been on, but they didn't put me on it because I was annoyed, and I told them I was annoyed. I never cussed anybody out. I'm not that type of person or anything like that. But I'm just like, oh gosh, whatever. Like if they're having a bad day, they're going to make your day worse. So I just suck it up and take it if I have to. But yeah, the bike bag thing, it works great. You can travel. So if I have to choose, back to your original question, I would fly if I didn't have my bike, but if I have my bike, I would much rather just toss it in the car and go. I have a van. I have a Honda Odyssey minivan that's amazing. I can sleep in it. I can cruise in that thing. It's a Haas. It's got 380,000 miles on it. It's still running strong. So
That thing is a beast. And yeah, when it pulled up, I was like, man, it was almost like a Princess Leia. Like, you came in that thing? You're braver than I thought. Like, oh my gosh, man, that thing is
for a stormtrooper, aren't you?
Yeah, right. So, all right, and then last question is: do you have a favorite sports team, and if so, who is it?
I only really like sports that involve two balls, so not really.
Okay.
If you catch my no, I
catch it.
So
just not the backhand, please. I don't want to catch it that
way. When it comes to like mainstream sports, I don't really pay too much attention to any of them. I couldn't tell you half the teams out there. Now, I will say this: for quite a few, like a handful of years, around, I guess it was about 7 or 8 years ago, just before and around the time my son was born, my wife and I really enjoyed going to baseball games in Dallas. So we would go to the Ranger games in Dallas. So I would say Rangers, Texas Rangers, if I had to toss one on there. But I currently am not following Major League Baseball, so I couldn't tell you who's on the team, who's not. My agent actually works with a lot of the guys that are down there at the Rangers and stuff, so he knows all those guys, and he's actually got me hooked up with some of them to do some cool stuff. But other than that, I don't really pay too much attention. But I would say, if I had to, I do have quite a few Texas Ranger hats, with the T on there. So yeah, Rangers. Let's go Rangers.
That'd be your favorite sports team. Okay,
sure,
right on.
That was that was a stupid answer, but yeah.
I don't think it's stupid, because in reality, like you said, because to me, like, the sports, going to the events is way better than just watching it on TV by far.
Heckling,
and especially if it's
best.
Yeah. But then especially if you're doing it with a family event too, because like you got to realize, like, it's that whole song is like that, they think we're just going fishing, but in reality it's this whole core memory that we're trying to unlock of. I remember fishing with just actually earlier today, my dad passed away last year, and just earlier today, for whatever reason, it's starting to warm up. I'm excited to take my daughter fishing for the first time. And all these memories kept flooding in my head about every time my dad took me out. We used to go to this place called Eagle Valley in Nevada. They had a little dock. We'd go there, and man, even if we weren't catching anything, I can still just remember some of the conversations we had, and just, being there and whatnot. So it's kind of like that thing. So
journey, not the destination.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So it's definitely not a stupid answer, because of the fact it's like, well, you got to take your kids to go see Texas Ranger games and stuff like that, then that's a good experience to me. So I'm good with that. Although I would say, most people know me, even if you look at the hat, they know I'm a hockey fan. So I'm all about hockey, especially at the live events, because it's just way more fun, especially when there's fights.
I went to a hockey game. It was the first time I ever went to a hockey game, and it was in I was actually in the Toronto area for a Red Bull event, a BMX event that Red Bull is doing, and they took all of us to a Maple Leafs game, and it was Maple Leafs and the Red Wings. So if you ever want to see a slaughter, go to a Maple Leafs and Red Wings game. It was the funny thing is, like, the Maple Leafs fans know how bad the team is, but they still love the team. So it's almost like they enjoy going to root for the losing team. Dude, the score was 8-0 in a hockey game. And it was like, by the end of it, they took the goalie out and substituted him for another guy on the ring, just on the ice, so that they could try to score a point. And it just made it worse, because there was no one protecting the goal. It was fun though. I definitely learned a little bit about heckling at a hockey game. It was fun. We were wiping the nosebleeds, so it was a good time. But I was
sometimes those are the best views for the hockey games, because when you're down on the glass, like you don't realize how much of the glass will actually obscure your view, especially when the play starts to go down the ice, and you're like, oh, I can't see them anymore. So now I got to stare up at the big jumbotron or whatever to watch. But man, I love hockey games. That's so much fun. So That's what we'll have to do. Well, now and one of the things I do got to get down to your area because man, there's so much stuff you talk about with like hog hunt and stuff like that, and I definitely think there's something we're gonna have to make happen. And then anytime we can, definitely next time for sure we'll schedule a full day of shooting because yeah, the few hours we had was fun, but like man, I could just only imagine what
Yeah.
we would have been able to do if we had like 6 or 7 hours to go out there and shoot and stuff. So,
Heck yeah.
with that being said, I'm gonna hand the microphone over to you and just tell people like where they can contact you. You know who are the companies that support you that you want to show some love to and all kind of stuff. This is your moment to shine and just go for it, man.
Nice. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. It's great getting to chat and kind of catch up a little bit. Always love getting to come and hang out with you, and I'm stoked that it worked out. Our chance meeting worked out, and here we are. A year later, getting to do something fun like this. My social media is all Texas M Wade, so TexasMWade. So Instagram is what I use the most, and I post to the other stuff from there because I'm one of those guys. I don't like using social media, but I do it because I have to. So if I can stay on one and post to all of them, that's kind of where I do. So Texas M Wade is my BMX Instagram account, and then I also have like the M Wade Works is my group work account for stippling and stuff like that. Sponsors, all the guys we talked about: Vortex, Multicam, Noveski, CMC Triggers, Dead Air Suppressors, like then I've got there's I always forget stuff when I'm trying to put on the spot like this, but it'll come back to me when I think about it. And then I got Hoffman Bikes is my bike sponsor, my frame sponsor, and Empire BMX is a mail order bike shop out of Austin. Great people, good humans down there. Best place to buy bike parts from. If you need bike parts for freestyle BMX, EmpireBMX.com. That's where you want to go. And then Ethica underwear. I have an underwear sponsor. Ethica makes amazing underwear. Do yourself a favor. Buy one pair. That's all you got to do, and then it's downhill. You'll never have a more comfortable pair of underwear on in your life. And it's the fancy ones. It's these guys right here. That guy right there.
Look at that. Oh, getting fresh.
That's what you want right there.
This episode's gonna need a warning label on it.
Ooh, spicy. But they also make socks. I wear their socks, and they do clothing and stuff, apparel and stuff too, and whatnot. But great group of guys over there. Travis Pastrana was one of the original guys that helped. Travis and Ryan Scheckler were two of the big investors that started Ethica up back in the day. And the guy named Malcolm McCasey is the guy that started it. It's his company. Awesome people out there, and they make a really good product. So do yourself a favor, make your nuts happy, buy some Ethica underwear.
Is that their official slogan?
No, that's just what I said. And then I've got some really good buddies. I do a lot of stuff like charities and whatnot. So my buddies at Tomahawk Strategic Solutions, they do a lot of LE training. They're all former special forces guys, and they got out and they decided they wanted to help out with the law enforcement side of things because what originally started is they heard some stories. One of their family members was on a SWAT team, and they were talking about entering a house, and they were just like, that's the old way. We don't do it like that anymore. Guys are going to get hurt. Like, let us teach you how we do it. Cause they've had years and years of practice in the Middle East going into places to get bad guys. And these guys are tier 1 dudes. They're amazing. And what they do, helping out our law enforcement and even like private businesses, they do, protocol, like security protocol for businesses and whatnot. They're growing really fast right now, but they have a charity that they started called Tomahawk Charitable Solutions that they raise money, and they're essentially like what you would call like a middleman for charities. So if like you're an individual or a business that has money they want to donate to a charity and you don't know exactly where to put it because you're not sure if it's going to go to actually helping people or if it's going to go to, padding the wallets of the people that run the charity. There are a few out there. I won't throw anybody under the bus, but there are a few that 80% of the money that comes in does not actually go to people that need it. It goes more into like merchandise to give awareness for the company to make more money. And it kind of like they pay, a board and the CEO and all this stuff. They don't do that. They literally, it's 100% in, 100% out, and they vet charities and pick good charities for the money to go to. So if you give your money to Tomahawk Charitable Solutions, they will make sure it goes straight to somebody who needs it. And they're also able, they keep essentially cash on hand if someone is in need and needs something taken care of immediately, like if they have a loved one that is killed in the line of duty. It's all special forces and LE charities for the most part, and fire department, stuff like that, first responders. If someone is killed in the line of duty or something of that nature, and the family needs money for something immediate, an immediate need that is going to take a while for it to go through the system for military or the law enforcement insurance and stuff to catch up, to help. Like if they need the money right then, right there, they are able to actually write a check for, 15 grand, 20 grand, whatever is needed immediately in the moment. And so they're a really, really great place to put charity money if you need a place to put it and you're not sure what you want to do with it. I would, hands down, you can 100% trust these guys. They're amazing. Tomahawk Charitable Solutions. And then I've got other buddies that, like, SOC F guys are great. Military Mobility is another buddy who does like off-road trips with vets that need some kind of leadership stuff. They don't know where they fit in. They've been, lost a limb or whatever, and they want to get back out and have some kind of a job to fill or a duty. It's like get from point A to point B going through the Moab desert on, 4x4s and stuff. Really cool stuff like that. They do great stuff in that neck of the woods as well. Trying to think. There's a foundation that I've done a lot of stuff with called Tribute to Valor, and it is a Medal of Honor foundation, and they work with the youth, a lot of youth stuff where they go to middle schools, high schools, wherever they can, and they basically teach the value of having good work ethic, good morals, and whatnot. And it's all Medal of Honor recipients that go and talk. And I've gone and we set ramps up in the gym, get the kids' attentions by doing flips and tricks and stuff, and then have the great honor of getting to do something with a Medal of Honor recipient comes out and actually talks to the kids and gives them essentially a pep talk on life. And then we do like a Q&A where the kids can ask me questions or the Medal of Honor recipient questions, and they do awesome stuff too. It's Tribute to Valor. But other than that, man, I've done stuff across the board with some other guys too. I know Multicam, they do all kinds of great stuff. Like this is Cry Precision has Team Multicam, and that's kind of like their charity wing. Like everyone that's on Team Multicam, like we're not like getting paid to be on Team Multicam, but we're on there because we do stuff for first responders and military charity stuff. So it's kind of like helping raise money for different charities that, whoever you're looking for, basically. So like on their website, they have all the guys have like the different charities that they would want to work with. And obviously, like what I just explained, Tomahawk is the one that I believe I have on my page on the Multicam site. So definitely check them out. Nothing but good stuff going on. Those guys are definitely, they got a heart for those that served our country and us as civilians here. And that's the least we could do is help give back. So thanks for giving me a platform to say all that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And we chatted about it a little bit when you were here and whatnot. And then you've even told me some of the stories about the hog hunts that you go on with some of these ex-operators that gives them a chance to kind of transition from that warrior lifestyle to a civilian lifestyle and stuff. So I definitely wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to talk about some of those foundations, organizations, and some of the good stuff you do.
Speaking of hog hunts, if you ever want to, this is for everyone listening, if you ever want to go on a helicopter hog hunt, which I highly recommend it is phenomenal. There's a company out of Temple, Texas called Last Shadow, and they are the best at what they do. I mean, Richard Potts is the pilot. He knows how to find pigs, and he'll get them out into a big field, and he'll use the helicopter to herd them and keep them in the field while you just go and you just waste pigs. So good. And all the farms around there, they're calling like night and day. Please fly over our farm today. The hogs are killing me. They're eating our crops. Please come get the hogs. And like literally, they can't even keep up with how many people are calling, trying to get them to fly over their property to get rid of the pigs out there. So if you want to get involved, hit up Last Shadow. Those guys are epic. Barrett, he's one of the guys that helps run it's amazing. It's amazing stuff. Good people, good times. Can't go wrong. And they do lots of awesome stuff with vets too, and take guys out, and they've allowed me to bring some guys and go do some stuff as well. So they definitely do a great job at that.
Yes, I would love to go shoot some hogs out of a helicopter for sure. I'd love to go shoot even from the ground. I'd be down. I've never done a hog hunt before, so we'll see. I've with NRA show just ending up, I was able to do some interviews with like some people from like Sightmark and Pulsar, talk about thermal optics and night vision stuff. So it might be something I try and get myself into here.
I'll say this: my absolute favorite way. There's different ways to catch pigs, to kill pigs, the wild boar, which are a huge problem down here in the South. They destroy crops. They cause massive amounts of damage. And it is actually considered a public service to literally kill as many as you can. One female pig in 1 year will create 64 more pigs if you don't kill it. Because they can start having pigs at, I think it's 6 months old, and then they can have another litter of up to 13 every 3 months after that. And the pigs, that second 3 month period after the initial 3 month period, those pigs are now old enough to start having pigs, and they're having pigs. And dude, it's a mess. They're not indigenous. They were brought here from Europe, and they don't have any natural predators other than us. So they just wreak havoc. So getting rid of them is a service. It's considered a community service, the same as like coyotes are in these parts as well, because they cause problem with the livestock and whatnot, and they can be dangerous. Pigs can be very dangerous, but there's different ways to hunt them. Night vision, walk around at night, find them. Night vision and thermal. The helicopters, you can get in side-by-sides and chase them down if you can find them, but by far the most fun way to do it, and this is what we need to get you down here, is with dogs and knives. Man, you don't shoot them because you might hit the dogs, right? So the dogs catch them, bay them up, and literally you got a pig that is nothing wrong with it, just pissed off, and the dogs are all surrounded barking, and you just run in and jump on it, push it over, and just start and stab it. Dude, hands down, that is the most. It's by far the most dangerous way to do it, because they are very dangerous. They have cutters on, the big tusks that stick out. They're razor sharp, and they're very dangerous. But as long as you know how to do it, you're with some people that know how to do it safely. It is quite fun, and that's what we just did. When I was talking to you about Tomahawk, actually, they sell every year. They do like a live auction charity dinner where people pay for the plate. You come in and you can bid on the different stuff. And the big item is a hog hunt, the Tomahawk hog hunt, where you get to go on a dog hog hunt with a bunch of former Navy SEALs and other tier 1 guys. And dude, it's an absolute blast. And they do that pretty close to where I am. So they're always like, they're my boys, they're family. So they're just like, hey, come help us catch these pigs. So I get to go out there and like, I basically help them catch and hold the pigs so that whoever bought the hunt can stab them safely and whatnot and help out, because I have experience with that. So it's just a great time, man. We'll get you out here. That's the way to do it.
Hey, don't threaten me with a good time, man. I'd be down to try anything at least once. So, yeah, man, sounds like a good time. We'll definitely try and get some stuff set up. And whenever we can, also, I think the cool thing will be that being that we're both Shoot Vortex and both gun guys and whatnot, we'll definitely make sure whenever we get a chance, film some content. So keep your eyes open for that. If you follow us on Instagram
Ruben down
or
here, man. We get Ruben down here and get a good old time.
That might be the way to do it. We might just need to do like a Team Vortex hog hunt outing or something like that. So we'll have to hit Ruben up about that. But right on, man. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us or chat with me at least. And it's a great time. Absolutely had a blast. And we'll definitely try and make sure we get some more time together on the range and whatnot. So. With that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you guys found this episode as enjoyable as I found it, getting to chat with my buddy Morgan Wade here. So make sure you go follow him, hit him up, like him. He's a good dude, good heart. And thank you guys so much. And keep your ears to the ground for the next episode of Open Action with me, John McClain, brought to you by Armscor Precision Ammunition.
Stay classy, San Diego.
I won't say the other version of that.